it's not about what we can do just right now. It's what we can do over time, because that's going to be the best predictor. What I can do today in the gym is not going to be the best indicator of my fitness. It's what I do every 3 days in my 4-day challenge.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Unlock Potential. I'm Brian Delaney. Our focus this season is fitness. I'll be joined by Dr. Duvall, who's going to guide us through his protocol for getting into your best shape so we can live our best lives and serve others well.
We're going to do a workout video today. We're going to shape this just a little bit different, a little bit more like the last workout video, where Corey is really going to be narrating the journey through the Stay Active method from the time we get into the gym, the time where we listen to our bodies rather than predicting and telling our body what we're going to do through a pre-planned effort. We just set aside the time. I'm going to be listening to my body, initiating the exercise. I'll be telling you a little bit more about the thought process, the philosophy behind the Stay Active method. What are the prompts we're looking for? What are the responses? And just fired up to get into the work. Don't feel fired up right now, particularly for the workout, and that's one of the reasons I had to show up today, right? Any thoughts before we get going?
Yeah, when you feel ready to exercise, we're going to get right into that limber test.
Yep.
Get those early signals and get a piece going.
Yep, awesome. So I'll start off with my limber test without pausing here and report out. So
with your feet together, reaching up overhead, and then reaching down, trying to get the elbows on the ground. As he moves through here, he's getting signals from the body, and those signals are saying, hey, Brian, these are the areas that are damaged and going through the healing process. These other areas are tired and need to be re-energized. There will be some areas that are tight to protect the damaged and tired areas. And there will be areas that are fresh and ready to go. Now, all of those signals go up through your memory center. Your memory and emotional center will try to turn the volume up on things you can no longer ignore.
Yep.
And it'll turn the volume down on things you're trying to ignore. And that comes through to your mind. You're like, okay, this is the main thing I'm experiencing. That guides us to the exercise. So what were you experiencing in that test?
One of the things that immediately got into my mind during the limber test is I feel good. And I started to prejudge that. However, my hips were telling me something different. I was after probably the second limber test, I started to feel a big tightness in my hips and groin area, and that ended up by the fifth time going through that ended up being the pervading feeling that I had, was that I was feeling a little bit tight in my hips, and my hips were feeling a little bit tired, and therefore that was translating through my body.
Yeah.
No matter how hard my brain tried to overwhelm that with you feel good, wanting to do the daily original work.
Got it.
Yep.
So you had a preconceived notion that you were tired.
Yep.
After a couple of tests, you start feeling good, but then the overwhelming experience was that you're feeling tight.
That's right.
Yep. And so that tension, we come over here, we take a look, we say, hey, when we feel tight, what type of work are we going to take on? When we feel tight, we're going to take on steady work.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and read the mindset for steady work there.
Yep. When it comes to the mindset, and really, a lot of this has to do with dosage, right? Because it's not just the work that you're doing; it's the dosage of effort that you're putting in, and dosage of damage you're incurring on the body. Not the bad kind of damage, the right kind of damage.
Exactly.
Right. So here with steady work, it's not the lightest version of the work, but it's also certainly not the most difficult. It's two tiers below that. So movement intensity, I've got to go quickly and easily, right? That's why it's called steady work. Where should my head posture be? Even in between when I'm doing the work, it needs to stay up. While I'm doing the work, my head posture is up, but between, like when I'm taking a rest, if my head goes down, that means I'm still going too far. So this is really a process for me, especially I found my experience to be power under control, holding back appropriately so I can keep my head posture up, with my gaze above the horizon. Belief, I've got to trust my ability to arrive, that I'm going to arrive. And this is where in the North Star, we have that balanced growth mindset, right? It's not about doing everything right now. It's about what kind of stamina, what kind of steadiness can I create over a long period of time.
Exactly.
And then the work limits are the comfort zone. This work is all, for me, about expanding my comfort zone, because when I came in this morning, my comfort zone was small, right? And so now I need to support my comfort zone. And that's what the steady work is going to allow me to do, is to start inside that comfort zone and start to bump out the edges little by little in order to create more real estate in that place. So I can go further, I can push myself harder in other parts of my life and still be in my comfort zone rather than being at the edge or over the edge of it.
Awesome.
Yep.
So let's grab that app. We'll see, what is the first steady work piece that you have to take on today?
Yep. My first stamina exercise for today is a 36-inch box mount. So 36-inch box mount, 10 minutes for deepest desire. My focus is going to be to resist tension, and I'm going to record total reps. So I'm going to set up my timer. I'm going to get my box set up my timer, and go after it for 10 minutes.
Perfect.
Yep.
A lot of times in exercise circles, there's resistance to doing high platform work like this because they say that jumping is bad for the joints. Well, as Brian's coming down, he's focusing on landing softly, and to land softly, he's touching his toes and then his heel. As he touches his toes, he's sending reactions up through the nervous system where his muscles are coordinating how he absorbs the ground. And as he absorbs softly, the muscles get more capable. If you were to land harshly and loudly and suddenly, instead of the muscles absorbing that, it would be the cartilage on the ends of his joints. And so he's learning how to do this in a way that protects his joints, and then he's getting better at protecting his joints in the future.
That was a great experience. My focus was hanging out right in that comfort zone. And I would feel myself start to push an edge and want to get to a predicted number like 10.
Yep.
Or 5. One of those. Or I'd want to switch legs at a predicted number. And that's something that you've asked me to bring into my awareness, to allow my body to dictate and for me to respond, or be aware of what my body's trying to tell me, rather than putting limitations on my body. Growing that awareness, low tech, high awareness, right? Awareness is ultimate technology.
So the main thing he was experiencing on the first set of limber tests was stiffness. Now he's going through, after doing some of that work, touching some of the edges of his comfort zone. Maybe he still feels tight. Maybe his main experience has shifted. We can't predict exactly how he's going to feel after going through that work. And so we don't try to predict it. We just check in and say, hey, now how am I feeling?
Yeah, it's funny how the exercises line up, right? My groin was tight previously. I end up doing a bunch of this work in my comfort zone, lifting my own body weight so I'm not causing more damage. And now my hips all opened up. So I'm not feeling great, but I am feeling good. And so it's time for me to get into some of the daily original work at this point. So we'll check out what that is. All right, so today's daily original work is gonna be 3 rounds of standing one arm dumbbell ground to overhead at the top level, at level 4. It's gonna be 50 pounds, 50-pound dumbbell by 35. Then it's gonna be medicine ball, shoulder kneeling to standing at the top level again. That's going to be 60 pounds by 35 reps.
is anywhere from one exercise to multiple exercises. You can do those exercises straight through, or you can do it in circuit fashion, going back and forth. It can be a task priority, like a certain number of rounds and reps, and see how long it takes. And it can be a time priority. Here's how long you're going to go for. See how many rounds and reps you can get in that time period. Now, another feature of the Stay Active method is that if Brian pushes a lot in this workout, and he's out in the effort zone for a lot of the workout, he's not doing it wrong by any means. But how his body responds the next day, the day later, and 3 days after that is going to be different than if somebody else was doing it beside him and spent more time in the comfort zone for this work. How two bodies respond to the same written workout is going to be different, and so we need a program that allows them to adjust accordingly. Yeah, brother. Get it?
There were times, and I felt myself at first, and it felt very unnatural, and I was like limiting myself during the daily original work to keeping my eyes up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, and then so I started to press a little bit because that's not a part of that exercise.
Right.
Sometimes that's called for, but in a workout like that, it doesn't need to be there. I can push that outside of my limit or start to get into my outside of my comfort zone in that work, but I can't go so far out that I'm just screwed.
Yeah.
And that's my experience with CrossFit previously has been more of that. It's been the pukey the clown. It's been the work until you're laying down, there's nothing left, and you can't get up, and you're just shot. And it's the same mentality with work, running my business, or whether you're doing work. It's not about what we can do just right now. It's what we can do over time, because that's going to be the best predictor. What I can do today in the gym is not going to be the best indicator of my fitness. It's what I do every 3 days in my 4-day challenge, what I can do there. So that's where my focus was, started to push and really just press those outside limits. And really, I'm always trying to get across from the limiting beliefs, because my brain tries to protect my body, which means it tries to stop my body before it needs to.
Yeah.
And so I just like try to shut that down, move quicker through it, so my mind isn't occupying so much of the space. Because I'm not here to just work out my mind. I'm here to get my body into it. So push that limit. Yep.
So let's get into that limber test.
Yep.
If you've got some time for some more exercise today.
Yep.
So what Brian was describing there is that we have a 4-day challenge, and we're always in that short term, what needs to be done over a 4-day period. We want 3 days of exercise. We want 1 day of rest. And so Brian was checking in as to, he's done 1 day of exercise. Yesterday he exercised. Today is day 3. Tomorrow is going to be a rest day for him. Now, a secondary recommendation is 30 to 60 minutes as a goal of duration for those days. And so he was short on that duration yesterday. But frequency first. He showed up, he exercised, he got that in. That's quality. Then how much he gets done in a given day, that's a second tier goal. How you feeling after those?
I feel good again. I feel good again. I'm on the border of great. But great's a little bit of a push.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I heard you talking about previously was like, oh well, this is how my body feels, but this is how my mind feels. How do you feel? That's the big thing. And so while my body might be ready to go, my mind's holding back a little bit. And so, which is like kind of, I noticed that just like a little bit of slowness above the shoulders, not just in my mind. And so I would, there's a part of me that wants to push toward great, but that wouldn't be a good idea right now. Pushing that outside. Yeah, it's going to be there when it's there. I don't need to try to edge it across the line. So I'm going to do some more daily original work.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. Rope climb, 100. So it's just one round. Rope climb, 150 points. Standing barbell ground to hip, 225 times 25. Squatted medicine ball, shoulder to target, 20 pounds at the 10-foot target with 50. Axle overhead carry, 90 pounds times 500 meters. So axle overhead carry, 90 pounds. So look at that. All right. So yeah, that's the work. I'm going to get into it.
Awesome, man.
Yep.
So on our rope climbs, we devised a scoring system to help people scale. We've got that top knot at 15 feet off the ground. And we recommend that people get their chest to the top knot. That's worth 45 points. You can see the lower knot here. That's at 10 feet off the ground. So we recommend that people get their chest to that lower knot, which he's about to do here. And that's worth 15 points. So you get 3 times the points for going just a few pulls extra. So you get credit for being able to go up a little bit higher. Now for those who have trouble getting their chest to that bottom knot, then we have people get their chest to a height on the rope that's above their reach. So these folks can jump and grab the rope and maybe do a little pull and get their chest to that level that's above their reach, and that's worth 5 points. So they get to practice just going a little ways off the ground over and over to accumulate points. If they get their chest to touch the rope just above their head, so basically grab it in kind of a jump and pull. So now it's like a jumping pull-up, grabbing onto the rope, which is really good for changing the orientation of the muscles of the wrists and hands and fingers. Well, that's worth 2 points. Now for folks who can't get their chest that high, they grab the rope and they just get it as high as they can, and that's worth 1 point. Good job, brother. What top? Top one. 10 foot?
Yeah.
Top one. So Brian's gonna hold this medicine ball at his shoulder. He's gonna get into a deep squatting position. Then he's gonna get that medicine ball up to that top target there, which is 10 feet in the air. So I'd never considered doing any exercise like this before I started doing CrossFit, and it's a pretty popular exercise in CrossFit gyms. It's called a wall ball. And it became like there was little to no scaling for wall balls. Everybody was using 20 pounds to 10 feet, or they were doing 14 pounds to 9 feet. And for the longest time, I was focused on getting better. And there was one CrossFit workout called Karen, where you did 150 of these for time. And I remember getting myself to the place where I was able to do 75, 50, and 25 with nothing but a brief momentary break in between those sets. And then I got bored with the exercise because it was the same exact thing, 20 pounds, 10 feet over and over. And so I started going heavier, saying, hey, what can I do with a heavier medicine ball, which is incredibly difficult if you start throwing 30 or 40 or 50 pounds in the air and then trying to catch it. And then it was a few years after that where I realized some people have trouble squatting all the way down. So how do we get them to do this exercise in a way that feels productive? Well, I say, do it while standing. And what happens is when they do it while standing and they start to get a little tired by just throwing it, they start to naturally dip down. And as they dip down, they start to learn how to use their legs to assist. Now, over time, they dip farther and farther down to get more and more of that leg assist, which ends up being into a deep squat and then throwing it up overhead. These overhead carries are an incredible way to improve somebody's walking gait. You can find imbalances and weaker areas in the foot and ankle, because as you're carrying that weight overhead, if you're trying to avoid one particular direction, that weight overhead makes it exponentially more difficult. And so it forces you to stay right down through the center of the body and find the easiest path to move through the ankles. So as a coach, I'm not just looking for a perfect technique for him. I'm looking for him to be able to use as much of his body as possible for all of these exercises. And so I saw him go not as far on the last set, and I asked him where he was feeling the strain. And based on where he told me he was feeling the strain, I recommended a style change in order to shift the strain somewhere else. So if we do it one way and we feel it in our shoulders, we do it a different way, we start to feel it in our torso, we can shift back and forth between those styles. When the shoulders are tired, we shift to feel it in the torso. When the torso is tired, we shift to feel it in the shoulders. That gets all of the work done a little bit faster. And it builds resilience in his body because he's got lots of options for how to do it. Now, if I said, you have to do it this particular way, he'll get better at that particular way, but as soon as he has to adjust, he's at risk because he hasn't trained those other ways. Yeah, good session.
Yeah.
How long was that last piece for you?
It was just a few seconds under 26 minutes.
Super.
Yeah, it's funny because anytime I start a workout like that, I want to give it my best, which in my head means, oh, I need to do this tomorrow. I've already gotten into my work today. I'm not going to be able to give it the best ever, but that is a very limiting belief. And so just getting into the work and allowing it to be what it is, rather than to have to be what I judge it to be, or to not allow it to be all that it can be.
Yeah.
So just really separating myself from the result, returning myself to the moment,
Yeah.
putting myself back in to the prescription of the work, where it should be tough, should be inspiring. Now, tough in that workout, that daily original workout was different than tough in the first one.
Definitely.
Because it took a lot less to get to tough, because my body had already been through some, had already put in some work.
Yeah.
There were things where I was more capable of, things that I was less capable of. The 225 on the bar felt really heavy. That usually doesn't feel heavy. That usually feels like I can lift it pretty simply, but today it felt really heavy. But instead of letting that screw with my mindset, just
Get the reps.
Put my hips through, look forward, make sure I'm not putting my head forward, make sure that I'm bending my knees at the beginning. Just all the things that allow me to lift it the quickest and easiest way.
Exactly.
Not focusing on form, focusing on quickest and easiest, and what my body needs to do mechanically in order to do that the most efficiently and effectively.
Yeah. A lot of the coaching cues around what it looks like is a fear projection into the future.
Yep.
If you look one particular way,
yep,
the coach might be afraid that you're going to hurt yourself in the future.
Yep.
Well, so then they try to say, hey, do it differently to protect that fear. When in reality, if we create more awareness in the moment, the client, the hero, is going to know when they're pushing their limits or not. We're improving that connection over time. And so I don't have to say it needs to look like this.
Yep.
I'm just there while they're expressing what they're experiencing. And one thing that Carson said in the last episode that we didn't really highlight yet was that his coach was the one deciding what it looked like as to whether Carson was going to take that on or not.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, are you supposed to do it based on the max that was set a few months ago? This prescription based on what you had done? And he said yes, and there is some freedom to that.
Yeah.
But the freedom was not how Carson was experiencing it. The freedom was what the coach thought it looked like.
Yeah.
And so if Carson hid and made it look correct, he could take on way more discomfort than was necessary. And that's how he ended up feeling super tired, feeling super weak, and then took on that initial injury.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because form is important. It's vitally important. But it's meant to guide function. It's form not to form itself. It's kind of like grammar. It provides function to words and sounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But some of the best communicators are some of the worst people at grammar. They're great at getting the message across, but if you were to type out what they said, it'd be like, that's not a full sentence, that's a fragment. What the hell does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, he just put a comma, capitalized the third word in there. That's not a proper noun, you know, but it was
effective.
It was effective in eliciting a feeling.
Yep.
Right? And that's the thing here. It was effective in eliciting a movement that accomplished a goal.
Exactly.
And that's where you were in guiding me through that overhead. You let me know, hey, your perception is also available, the one you have right now, but there are multiple perspectives that you can walk through that are also available. So you have more freedom.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, my experience with coaches in the past, in many ways, has been, hey, there's less available than you perceive. Right? It's like your perception is you can do it any way that feels okay, but here's the way you're not hinging right at the hips. You're not doing these things. I mean, watch these world's best bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Or watch these world's best weightlifters, powerlifters. And I was like trying to copy a power lifter.
Yes.
And I realized I'm in bare feet with 2 pieces of clothing on. You know, I'm not in a singlet. I'm not wearing a belt. I'm not doing all those things.
Yep.
So there's an availability, there's an opportunity for me to exercise a ton of freedom and therefore allow my core to find stability no matter where I am.
Yeah.
And that's not a practice in the gym. That's a practice in our lives.
Yeah.
It's not how still do we need to stand, or how little movement can we have in order to remain inside of a balanced zone or inside of a place where we can still be present and powerful. It's, can we keep touching the outside edges of this to be more present and powerful and accept that falling is part of the process, but staying down is not.
Yeah.
We can just hop back up, and all we do is we just get better at hopping back.
Yeah.
And it's somebody gave me this idea around gymnasts and a balance beam, right? If I were to hop on top of a balance beam, I would try to stay right in the middle of a balance beam. However, professional gymnasts who work on a balance beam do not stay right in the middle of the balance beam. See, on a 4-inch beam, I would only be using maybe a 1/2 inch or trying to, because I'm trying to stay on that narrow edge that I define as success, that I define as strength, that I define as wealth, or whatever these most positive definitions are. Yeah. And as a result of that, it takes very little to get me off balance and then off the beam. Well, a professional gymnast that's on a balance beam is not using the 1/2 inch in the middle. They're using the total 4 inches plus whatever their foot hangs over on either side. You'll watch them sometimes, and the better part of one foot is completely around, almost bent at the middle, grabbing on almost like another set of hands, right? Grabbing onto that balance beam. And they're trying to find the outside edges where I was trying to find the center.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in coaching styles. That's the difference in the stay active method. Let's find those outside edges. Let's have a conversation with those. Yeah. Let's find those inside edges. Let's have a conversation with those. Yeah. Let's get engagement, a relationship, awareness with those. And that's where the stay active method says, in order to grow, it's not self-denial, it's self-acceptance.
Right.
In order to grow, it's not situational or circumstantial denial. It's just to know that we have influence on those circumstances and control with ourselves.
Right.
And that's where the stay active method really has separated things for me. because I have had more muscle growth in certain areas over shorter periods of time with other things that have always ended up in injury, illness, and suffering. But I've never had complete muscle building, range of motion, extending, being able to do steady work, things that affect my mindset in such a positive way, more self-acceptance all at the same time. That's why the Stay Active method, we're focused on fitness, but it's your ability to fit, not just your body, but the whole thing, your whole self, in and out of the gym. Where can you fit? Where can you be useful to others? How can we serve? How can we be ready for that? And ready for that means coming into the gym and doing the 4-day challenge, using the North Star, being on the path, working with my coach, and even still knowing that I'm going to go through these seasons where it's like, screw Corey, it's a bunch of crap, you know, because I'm like hitting I'm taking what used to be my ceiling and turning it into the floor.
Yeah.
That's a remodel, baby. We got to deconstruct before we can construct. And if you're willing to let go of what you have so we can give you some of what the Stay Active method has, then you're ready for the journey. Even if you're not ready to let go of everything, but maybe just to let go of one thing, that resistance that you're not qualified to change, because that's really entitlement. So just let go of that resistance and let's get curious and let's grow curious together. I'm curious about what's available for me. And isn't that such a blessing? Because most people, I think, are depressed because they believe that there's nothing left for them. And hope in the future is power in the present. Hopelessness in the future is absolute, it's disabling in the present.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what we're going for. So I just want to encourage people as they see these workouts, don't just watch them, work with us. Join us in the work. We're going to be posting videos on stayactivemethod.com describing this. You don't need to have a coach. Having a coach is the right move for me because I want that reassurance, but you don't have to have a coach to use the Stay Active method. That's how damn good it works. It works really well. You don't need a coach. You don't need to have everything in order to be able to get started. We just need to get started in order to start growing and changing even the way that we think.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unlock Potential. Follow us across all socials at Unlock Potential 360 and visit our website at unlockpotential360.com to shop our gear and see what's coming up next.
The information and views expressed by our host or guests on the Unlock Potential podcast are their own, and not a substitute for professional medical or fitness advice. Always consult with qualified healthcare or fitness professionals before starting any new exercise program or making changes to your current routine.